Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Humans and Wildlife Show. My name is Georgia Auteri. With me, as always, is my co-host, Christian Sase. Christian, what are we going to talk about today?
Hi, Georgia. Very nice, and it's exciting. Last time was a great topic. We had everything about oil spills, and today we're actually going to talk about heat as the summers get warmer, as it seems, and it's going to be quite an interesting topic. So we hope we'll have a lot of participation from the audience too.
Yeah, definitely. And I just turned on the chat window, so we hope to hear everyone from the audience chiming in. Good evening and hello to those who already said hello. We have David Howden here, who he recently had a very interesting live stream on finding some new species of moth for the first time that hadn't been documented yet in the nature area in the UK where he works. So there's a species, and he talked about some species of moth that are that were restricted to more southern areas in Europe, and now they're finding for the first time in more northern areas with more regularity. And that is because not just at a seasonal scale it's getting hotter, but also, with the years going on, it's getting hotter with climate change and other things. So Christian, the topic today is how animals deal with it being really hot, animals and people. So, Christian, you wanted to talk about ospreys first, I believe?
Yes, and I'm just seeing very, very interesting what you said about David Howden. David, we would love to have you actually on the show in the future. You have such in-depth, interesting knowledge. I know it's late for you in the UK, but if it's possible, and if that, we're not going to put you on the spot, but it's just a suggestion. And Gentleman Ghost says it's still autumn in New York City. Well, you have to explain yourself.
I mean, I have my hoodie on, like here. I had to put on a coat to go outside. I came in from outside just in time, and I was all bundled up with my hood and stuff. So I guess maybe it's spring. It's chilly spring, but yes.
It's chilly spring. Yes,
Mhm.
yes. Okay.
Yeah.
And Mary says hello from Washington State. Yeah, do put your comments in. So yeah, let me see if I can just share my screen. I will do that because I just want to show you something if I can.
This is footage from the osprey nest. You focus on pulling up the screen, but I was going to say, I think that this is footage from your osprey nest cam.
Yes, that's exactly right. So I don't know if you can see it at the moment.
Here.
Oh yeah, please put it. So this is a live picture, as you can see from the clock ticking down there. That's on Pacific time. So I'm actually in our summer house at the moment near Kelowna, and that's looking over the beautiful Lake Okanagan. And here I have a possibility to control the camera remotely. As you can see, I can swing the camera up and down, which is very nice. So that's the direct view that I have outside, which I didn't have last year. So I'm just going to swing the camera here, and you can see the direction at the bottom. So you can see this is S, so going south here. And as I go to about 193 degrees, so this is all calibrated, by the way, and now I can zoom in optically, which is quite amazing. I'm just going to do that. You can see probably where I'm going.
The osprey nest.
There, and this is why I installed this crazy camera. Because
an insane zoom ability.
They're going low, and there are, if you look carefully, there are two ospreys there. You can see them, and I have to be very quiet in the house because it's on a long sort of on a long pole above the house, and this is quite far. This is about, well, what would I say? The osprey nest is about 400, or almost half a mile away, right? So I can zoom in and watch them, and it's quite incredible. So they came in exactly on the 18th of April, which is quite remarkable, because I was worried they wouldn't come back, and I'll explain to you in a moment. But why this is so cool, I will soon put this also on a live stream. And by the way, Georgia,
follow Christian's channels if you don't on Facebook or YouTube. But wait, can I guess?
Yes, you can go.
All right. I have some guesses about how this relates to the topic of how animals deal with the heat. So one, these ospreys recently had to deal with fires in the area. Like around, a little under a year ago, they had these raging wildfires in the area.
Correct.
And also, it was a very hot summer for you last summer, and they had chicks basically jumping out of the nest because the nest was too hot. So they were like the only way to get out of this like sort of heated nest area. They often died, right, because they couldn't fly yet, and so they would throw themselves out of the nest because it was an unusually hot summer. So those are my guesses. Am I
That's
right?
completely correct. And I wanted to say, because well, Georgia knows what a wildlife and astronomy nut I am. I also have a live camera now in Australia, and we can see kangaroos. I'll be putting both of these on YouTube fairly soon, and then you can enjoy Australia live, kangaroos, and the night sky, and also this. I just had to say that anyway. So
No, that's great. You should promote yourself.
yeah.
So like,
Okay.
so do you know if these particular ospreys? Can we see the ospreys again? Do you want to zoom
Yes,
in
of course. I'm going to. I'll go and swing there again. Let's go there.
Yeah.
So the answer is yes. And I was very concerned that
I
they
didn't even
wouldn't.
ask the question, but you know, or what did you think the question was? Like these are the same? Well, I was going to ask, did these ospreys lose babies last year because of the heat?
Exactly. That was very tragic. We had, and that's where the topic really starts today. We had a crazy Canadian summer, and especially it wasn't far from here, Georgia. It was about, well, maybe 100, 150 miles where they had the hottest recorded temperature ever in Canada. And gosh, it was 50 degrees Celsius, which is, gosh, I just had to translate in my head. It's approximately, gosh, that must be over 120 Fahrenheit. I need to check it, but it was something crazy, 115, 170, it's somewhere around there, Fahrenheit, which is absolutely insane for Canada. And then the wildfires started. And unfortunately, that comes to the topic today. A lot of the ospreys also in this area couldn't cool themselves anymore because, well, and you had this beautiful picture of this. What was it again? The bird that you put on
A
today's.
toucan.
Yeah, the toucan. That's right. And they don't have sweat glands, right? And
Yeah.
so
Birds don't sweat like us to help
yeah.
keep, and you know, as many people know, sweat helps keep us cool because we get wet and then there's evaporative water getting off of our skin and it makes us feel cooler.
Yeah, it's such an interesting topic. I was reading so intensely that I nearly forgot about the show today. And we'll talk about
I was
that.
texting Christian. I was like, "Where are you?" He's reading about how animals deal with it being too hot. He's so excited about the topic. He
Yes.
the show. So, but
Yes,
thank
and
you to everyone else
yeah.
also who was able to join us on time, which like Christian, but also David Howden and Gentleman Ghost and Richard Mountford and Jeannie Kilabuk. Welcome everybody. We really we love having comments. So definitely include your comments and questions and stuff in the chat and just musings. Yeah, so these ospreys returned even though they had nest failure last year and their chicks died because it was too hot here last year. Do you know if it's the same individuals?
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly, I see Gentleman's Ghost. I will have to just deviate for 30 seconds onto astronomy because it's a wonderful topic. Because you asked me, have you seen the 4-planet lineup? Yeah, last year I actually showed Jupiter and Saturn live. You may know that. And I saw with my roof camera, I was able to resolve the moons of Jupiter and also of Saturn, which was incredibly exciting, right? So yes, and I have to say too, there's a lunar eclipse coming up on May 15th. That's something I have to ask David Dunn, right? Is that's right? And I will try and broadcast that live because that lunar eclipse will be coming up about here. I have to just quickly show that, Georgia, and then I will get back on topic. I promise.
Okay. Yeah, you're fine.
Because it's just so cool. I already looked where the moon's going to come up. It's going to be the total eclipse, and it's just going to come up right in this area around here on the 15th of May. And I hope we have a clear sky, and I'll be able to show this around 8 p.m. at night, live zooming in as the moon comes up in total. It's just a fantastic. Okay, so I had to say that. Okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you could people can see that on your YouTube channel that we're on right now, and also your Facebook that we're on.
Yes. Okay, but let's get back on topic. Georgia, I've talked enough. Why don't you say something first?
Why don't you say something? Okay, well, I will talk about the toucan, I guess. I put up as like sort of the promo picture for today, a picture of a toucan, and that's because I actually learned something really interesting about toucans. So I'm actually going to I will share my screen real quick instead of you, if that's okay. And yeah, so here is the toucan, and as you can notice, toucans have a really big bill, much bigger relative to their body than a lot of other species of birds. And this big bill of theirs is actually one of the things that helps them keep cool. And I'm curious if anyone has any guesses, definitely put it in the chat. How might this big bill help keep them cool? As Christian hinted, birds can't sweat, so that's not an option for them. Some birds do something that's similar to panting. It looks like how like a dog might pant, like I can't do that very well. Anyways, that's another way that some animals help keep cool, and some birds will do it, but the toucan doesn't. And let's see, I'm going to share a video real quick. So basically the spoiler is that the toucan, the bill is like, it has a lot of veins and stuff going through it. And so that helps to lose a lot of its heat to the environment. If you have a lot of surface area exposed to the environment, that has your body heat, and then your body heat gets lost into the environment, that'll help keep you cool. And so we're going to watch a quick video on this. And yeah, we're small. Okay.
I'm Kathy Wren at AAAS, the nonprofit science society that publishes the journal Science. I'm talking today with Glenn Tattersall of Brock University, who is the lead author of a study that will appear this week in Science. So Dr. Tattersall, what question did you set out to answer in this study?
Well, we wanted to know the consequences of the toucan having such a large bill. Many people probably recognize the toucan.
And then
the first video shows just that, and record them.
So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to this footage that they have that they took with infrared that shows the heat in the toucan.
Falling asleep. The first video shows just that, about 2 hours worth of video. What you're seeing here is a time lapse, so there's a really rapid playback speed. And what we observed that even though the air temperature itself is not that warm, around about 20 degrees, the bird has an extremely warm bill, maybe 10, 15 degrees warmer than the ambient temperature. As it falls asleep, the bill actually warms up transiently and then eventually cools back down to air temperature, nearly a 10-degree change. If you notice, the pink edge of the bill gradually turns purple and then eventually goes down to blue, the lower temperature on the scale. These changes in bill temperature likely accompany a change in core temperature of the bird, as it's common in warm-blooded animals or endothermic animals to lower their body temperature during sleep. These birds adopt the lower temperature, but in order to do that, they have to dump the body heat somewhere, and we're proposing that they use the bill to dump that body heat. Our second video is from a later stage in the sleep phase of the toucan. What you're looking at here is a 2.7-hour trace demonstrating that the toucan is fully gone to sleep, has adopted the typical sleep posture of birds where they tuck the bill behind the head and between the wings. But unique to the toucans and toucanettes is they actually reflect their tail feathers backwards over top of the bill. And this sort of rather awkward position appears to be an attempt to insulate the bill from the environment, but the thermal imaging still reveals the heat coming or emanating from the bill tucked behind the feathers. And so you'll see, hopefully, in the video here, you'll note the bill transiently warming up and cooling down, going from colors of purple or blue back up to oranges and yellows. And then towards the end of the video, it starts to warm up again. And this is happening even though the birds are not moving or even appearing to wake up.
All right, so I'll stop that real quick. But Christian, isn't that interesting? Did you know that?
No, gosh, I learned so many interesting things. You know, Georgia, it reminds me a bit about the hummingbirds, because the hummingbirds have an incredible temperature regulation too, which a friend of mine, actually my thesis advisor, made me aware of. He was very interested in how hummingbirds, because they're so tiny, regulate their heat. And as you know, they can survive very cold winters and also very hot summers. And what he did is he put their feather structure under a microscope and started measuring the distance between the feathers. And he found, that these little barbules that they have, and he found out that the distance is about 10 to 15 microns. And that's not a coincidence. That is exactly the wavelength that corresponds to our body temperature when we radiate heat, right? So that's the equivalent of, as you say, about 98 or 100 Fahrenheit, or a temperature of 38 to 40 degrees Celsius, right? And a lot of birds and so on have similar temperatures, maybe plus a bit more or a bit less, depending on that. But that's no coincidence. So they're actually able to thermally regulate the heat very well, both at nighttime and during the daytime. By that, it's very, very effective. Yeah, I didn't know that. But it just reminded me a bit of that. Yes.
Yeah, and to answer a question from David Howden, the toucans do have a superficial network of blood vessels in their bill. Superficial just means that they're towards the outside. So this is, probably part of, so that blood is basically carrying heat from the rest of the body that then gets exposed towards the environment more. And I just put a link to the scientific paper in the chat so people can see that. And then also, actually, I can share my screen again. I found a picture with the blood vessels. It's not super clear, but this is, you can kind of see there's sort of like a pattern of venation. So that's like all the different blood vessels that are in the bill, especially out towards the tip. It almost looks like a bunch of little craters and stuff. So and I think there was actually a comment earlier. Do you know ospreys in North America are different species than ospreys in the UK?
Yes, they are. I think we had that once. There was an osprey expert actually from the East Coast, and he was saying there are many subspecies, and they do differ. The answer is yes, they do. The subspecies, and they can vary quite a lot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. Well, that's what I have. That's what I have for toucans.
That's interesting. Well, maybe I'll just let's talk a little bit about animals that can deal in extreme heat. And I didn't know this either. That's why I got so involved in reading here. An animal called the dibukali, which is the African wild ass, right? And it can be in northeastern Africa and temperatures of about 120 degrees Fahrenheit, which is, it's 45 Celsius or so. That's or even more, around 50. That I didn't know, that they can survive in such extreme heat, and they have the ability to drink a lot of water. It really looks like a mule, oh gosh, I hope I get this right, and I don't mix these things up. I would say a donkey, sorry. I shouldn't say that. But it looks very much like that, and it's very interesting. Did you know that, Georgia?
I did not know that. Yeah. Wait, where are these living again? Wait, do you want to let me show the picture that you have up?
Yeah, there you go. That's the picture. That's the picture. So these are northeastern Africa, right? That's all. I don't have more information, but I found that really interesting when I found that. And then maybe something we should talk about also is, which I found very interesting. This is about the church, I mean, why am I suddenly coming in with the church here? So in Europe, as you know, and those of you who live in Europe and so on, we have a lot there in Europe that we don't have in North America, and that is, a lot of ancient buildings, and you have these old churches and so on that have these incredibly thick walls, right? And I was just reading this article from the UK, which is also interesting, about these large Gothic churches that they have there, and the same in Germany and many other, of course, Italy and France and so on. Many other countries have them too. And what I always found remarkable as a child, because when I came in these churches, was it was so cool. Of course, in winter that can be quite devastating, but in summer when it got really hot, it was remarkable. And and especially these old monasteries that you also have, these beautiful old monasteries, would be remarkably cool. And I wasn't very interested at that time in history. Now I am more, but I would just hide in there, and I just found it wonderful. And it's just how do you? That's one of the topics we're going to talk about today. Also, is how can we actually avoid heat without expending a lot of energy? That's a big topic, and that's where the first.
You mean how can we as humans avoid this so that we don't have to spend as much like fossil fuels and stuff?
That's completely
on like air conditioning. Yeah,
that's a great topic, and this is such a beautiful topic because so much is happening in there now. And what I wanted to talk a bit about is, I don't have a picture now. This is how to design your house. That's maybe a bit more like Georgia's house or so. I don't know, but that's what I imagine it. But I was reading this, and what I wanted to tell you is the following. It brings us right back to trees. I don't know. Again, I have to think of my childhood or when my student days when I traveled to Morocco, and I remember traveling in the bus for hours. It was very cramped, and then it was crazy hot. That's North Africa, really crazy hot, and it was unbearably hot, so hot that I couldn't even move anymore. And I remember just getting a bottle of water and just being underneath a tree for hours. And I never asked myself, why is this tree such an effective way of cooling? And of course, now I ask myself that question, what is better? I mean, if you take the same area and you just get the same amount of shade and you get a tree, why is a tree cooling more effectively? So I want to ask the audience that, why would you think that a tree is more effective in cooling than maybe offering the same in shade? And then we'll get right to the topic of air conditioning.
Wait, so could you explain the question? I'm a little like, why is a tree more effective at cooling than? Yes. You mean like the shade of a tree is cooler than the shade of an umbrella?
Area. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of today. Yeah. So if I'm sitting out there and you have the same as an umbrella, let's say in a city or so, and then you have a tree there, and you will say, yes, David Howden gets it. David Howden gets it. That's exactly fascinating. Nature is amazing. There's so much we can learn. It's transpiration, and that's the process of water, of plants, the way they transfer water into the atmosphere. That's exactly right, through small pores. That's David Howden knows.
So yeah. People in the chat, be honest. Let us know if you don't know what transpiration is. You probably don't, right? It's kind of like evaporation.
And sweating. It's like sweating, yes, in a way. Yes. That's right.
Yeah. I mean, so yeah, basically like the tree is putting off water in some way. Tell us the physics of it. Like, how does
that's exactly what's so amazing. Water is such an amazing property. It's got a lot of heat capacity. That's why we like to jump into lakes and so on. It's quite remarkable. And also it doesn't, I mean, lakes, as you probably know, are very good thermal insulators too, right? The top layers are much warmer than the bottom layers. I mean, anyone who's diving will always say in summer, what the heck's going on? You know that feeling, right? When you dive underneath the surface, it suddenly gets so cold. Yes, it's a wonderful thing. But back to water now. Why is water so remarkable? For many, many reasons. I'm just seeing this beautiful turkey vulture cross there as I'm looking out of the window. Sorry, I just had to say that. But why is water so effective? And that's how we sweat. And what actually happens is, we call this the latent heat. Those of you who've done a little bit of thermodynamics or things in heat in school may have known that if we sweat, it's very effective, and birds cannot sweat. That's why they dive into waters. Ospreys do that, and so on. But as we sweat, what happens, in order for the liquid to change to a gaseous state, it has to actually go through, and it takes a lot of energy. And this energy, at the same temperatures, using the same temperature, water is always evaporating. Not only when you boil water, by the way, it's always evaporating at some stage. It depends on the pressure and the temperature, really. So as we sweat, that's why we feel so nice and cool, because it's the water is evaporating, changing to gas, and thereby lowering the temperature. It's taking heat from your body. That's how sweating works. Now, sweating will not work infinitely because there'll be if you go up with the temperature, there will be a point where the reverse effect happens, right? So it actually starts really feeling uncomfortable on your skin.
That's like why it feels hotter when it's muggy outside. Outside when the
Exactly.
humidity is really high.
You
Well, I
got
guess
it.
that's not just about temperature though. That's about like
Yes.
there's already a lot of other water in the air, and so it's not evaporating. as
Exactly. And now coming back to the tree. So the tree is a type of microcosmos, microclimate there. It's absolutely fascinating how nature works. So first of all, the tree blocks about 90% of the sunlight away. So you can say, well, that compares very well to your umbrella. But now why is the tree more effective? And it's exactly because a tree is typically giving up about 100 liters per day, a larger tree, that's the amount, and drawing that through its roots and basically giving it off to the atmosphere again through tiny pores. That's what David Haldane was saying. That's the process of transpiration, and that is actually keeping the whole climate around the tree a lot cooler. That's why I remember going through France and these beautiful alleys that they have, and when you have an open window, it just feels so wonderful. I never thought about that, but that's the reason. So trees are magnificent. And how do we humans then? What do we learn from that? Well, you coming back to your first point, Georgia, talking about air conditions, right? Now, air conditions are quite sinful in energy. Now, you would say, because they actually use a lot of equivalent water. You say, well, air conditioners are not using water, they're removing that. That's not true. But we have to think a little bit wider. So let's go to a sprinkling system, or what do you call this? Not sprinkling system. I forgot what the name was. These what is it called? These things that they have in restaurants in hot climates. That where they
like the misters.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
That's the word I was looking for. I just lost it. Thank you. The mist something, not mystifier, but mist. What is it?
Mystifier. It's amazingly cool.
Yes, and that. I think that's exactly what's happening there. It's drawing the heat from the environment and using it. And then a lot of people complaining and saying, hey, we're wasting a lot of water here. Well, you'll be surprised how effective these humidifiers or these tiny sprinklers actually are. Because if you compare them to the energy consumption of an air condition, you have to think also if an air condition runs on electricity, or if an air condition runs on natural gas or whatever, the amount of energy that you use from water, the amount of water that you need to extract it is a lot. It's about 10 to 100 times more than you are actually using, including the electricity consumption, which is very low. You're talking about 200, 250 watts for these machines compared to your air conditioner that is consuming several kilowatts at that moment, right?
So you want us all to plant trees around our houses and encourage our cities to plant trees around the parks and stuff. And along the streets, because guess what? It'll be so much cooler. Not just because the trees are shading us, but because they're misting us as well. Just like a mister at a restaurant or something. They're making it nice and cool. And I showed you basically the tree is getting this water from the water that it gets from the ground, basically, that takes up through it, and then it's perspiring. It's lovely.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm just seeing Sean there. Hi from South Africa again. That's very nice to see you. And you know this very well from South Africa too, how hot it gets there, right? Mm-hmm. And these are things. I'm fascinated how nature has solved these things. And we in a city, the temperature difference that you have by not having trees can be 5 to 10 degrees. That's how much temperature difference you have just by not planting trees. It's incredible, So
just by trees, man, Christian, I feel like you're like a modern day Lorax right now. You're like the trees.
I know it sounds.
This is some tree propaganda.
Yeah,
so Gentleman Ghost has this comment too. Like this feels tropical forest too. I think maybe what you're referring to is that like there's so many trees in tropical areas and they're so densely packed together, and it's the rainforest that the trees are like taking up all this water. But then you have a lot of transpiration happening when the trees are all putting water into the air, and that forms, guess what, like clouds with lots of precipitation that just like rains right back down on the trees. I think maybe that's like the tropical forest cycle that you're referring to, but I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, and then Sean is agreeing with you that it's like very hot in some places, including South Africa. Yeah.
Yes, it is. And I just notice how little attention we give to trees in major cities. This is always what shocks me. And then we're just using a lot of air conditioning. And what I find so fascinating, and I have to go on about this topic. Let me just quickly show that, and I will try and get this person on a future show. If you could share my screen again, please. This is really fascinating, and that's where I nearly forgot about the show here. I didn't know this again. And I really love these initiatives. This is a simple way of, again, using this transpiration or innovation from a UK company in London. And they are doing projects in Africa. And they are using just water. They're actually using seawater and cardboard in the design, and it's very simple. It's very simple, and they can show that they can grow vegetables, tomatoes, and so on by using very little water and just a very simple technology. So basically, what they're doing is I was just see if I can have a better picture here. I don't know what. Yeah, here I think this is one. These are their buildings here, proof of concept and so on.
Wait, so do the buildings? What are the buildings for?
So the buildings are just space where they grow their vegetables.
Do they allow the plants to start growing?
Yeah, you got it, Georgia.
Okay.
And
because otherwise it would just be like too hot for the plants, and then you have a vicious cycle of you put water down, it just evaporates right away because it's so hot. Whereas instead of a vicious cycle, if you have plants, it creates You
got it so quick, Georgia. That's exactly it. So it's the opposite of the normal greenhouse. You're not trying to raise the temperature, you're trying to now lower it. And you're doing this also again by transpiration, which is very interesting, or this evaporation using the latent heat that I was just explaining. But what's interesting
and then once the plants get big enough, you don't need the building anymore, right? Because then the plants are all helping keep the area cool together. They're mediating the environment collectively. Yeah.
I think it's brilliant because they're also using seawater. So they're doing desalination at the same time. Yeah. I mean, this is crazy clever. This is crazy clever. I always think, why didn't I never think of this? Because
Christian, you're so excited. You're like going in leaps and bounds. I do think it's so like, for those who don't know, why is desalination, or why is extra salination a problem, right?
Well, we have so much seawater, but it seems to be costing a lot of energy to separate the water from the seawater, right? That's
and isn't salination is like a climate change kind of problem, right? Because you have so much more evaporation happening, and then the water gets like more condensed and saltier somehow, or we're just losing fresh water.
Yes, we are. We are consuming it as you remember last time when I was talking about Palm Springs. That's a good example, right? Or Las Vegas, all these big cities, right, have incredible consumption. I can understand why they're doing it, but at the same time, we have to think of alternatives too, right?
Well, hang on one second. So put up your picture of all the little plants growing in the greenhouse.
Oh, yeah.
I have a great metaphor, and I'm going to grab it right now. Yeah.
Okay, sure. I'll go back. So yes, Sean, and this is indeed very smart. I think it's absolutely brilliant. So they're using seawater and this type of cardboard thing. So what they're doing is they're evaporating the seawater, separating the salt from the water, using that to irrigate the plants. I mean, how brilliant is that?
I imagine they have some other place where like the water evaporates and they collect it in some chamber.
Yes.
So it's also like a terrarium, right? Speaking of systems being self-regulating. So this was, as what I was going to share as my metaphor is, I'm planning on making a terrarium in this bottle. This bottle is special because it's a bottle of liquor that I bought to celebrate when I got my job.
Oh, here we go.
And so once we finish it, we're like one of my friends was just like, you know what you should do? You should make a little terrarium. You should make it full of like plants from Ann Arbor, Michigan, where I am now. I'll be moving for my job, and it'll be a nice little like keepsake full of. But the thing is, a terrarium, if you don't know, is a sort of self-sustaining system because the water is like kept inside the system. it's like captured. You're not losing it. It's sealed. So what they're doing in these temporary, I don't want to call them greenhouses. Yeah, cooling greenhouses is similar to help get the plants started. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Dorota Janiak's comment made me think of a terrarium, because she said ecosystem is amazing. And yeah, a terrarium is like a little ecosystem. Yeah.
Yeah. So it shows, that's why I'm so fascinated with these concepts of trees. It's just so simple and such an ingenious solution that trees have done. And so we have these what do you call them? I can't mystify. I have no idea what these things are called, like humidifiers or whatever, but you know what I'm talking about, that we should be using much more instead of air conditions and so on, because they're also much more healthy, by the way, right? So
as long as it's clean and stuff, yeah.
Yes.
There are sometimes when I go to a restaurant that has a mister and I'm like, this just smells like mold or something. But yeah, with trees, you don't have that problem.
Trees just solved it all, right? It's just amazing, right? So there's a lot to think about here. Yeah. Anyway, that's my 2 cents for today.
Christian's like, plant trees. Points 1, 2, and 3. Trees. It's how to keep cool. Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is, Dorota. It is very interesting, and how much we can learn from it. That never ceases to amaze me. I must say, I often go very blind through, or I don't. For decades, I've been quite blind, and I'm slowly waking up to see all these things. It's quite shocking, actually.
Yeah. So yeah, on the topic of urban trees, there is like a beautiful, beautiful street in my hometown where it's just one of the nice boulevards downtown, a relatively small U.S. city. And you walk down this very nice street in front of, there's the public library and, some other nice architecture buildings. And there's trees, and they form like a complete canopy over the street, all these like maples, I think they are. And those trees are lining that street because there was a very rich family that lived there. They had a mansion that's now a fancy like bed and breakfast next to the library. But this family that lived in the mansion, the daughter woke up one morning and said, "Daddy, I had a dream that there were trees lining the street outside." And she had this like very vivid dream of like the street was lined with trees and there was a canopy and it was like being in a forest. And her parents planted the trees along the street because she had that dream. And as the town legend goes, it was the year before she died, once she was an old lady, 70 years go by or something after she had this dream. The trees had finally grown enough that the canopies touched. And so she got to see her dream come alive before her death. Isn't that interesting? I just think it's a beautiful story. It's a beautiful street though. And I think it's kind of neat that it came about because of the dream of a child. So
oh, great.
Yeah, maybe we can all have similar dreams for the areas that we live in, for some of the streets that we walk on regularly or the parks we go to regularly. Yeah, more trees. If trees are what you're supposed to have in your ecosystem there.
Yeah, and I mean, just how do we avoid the heat? Let's talk a bit about draw the blinds. I mean, while natural light is great, too much can turn your home into a sauna. Well, we know that. It's very simple. Avoid using the stove. That's another thing. We have all these different desires all the time. I know I'm not here to preach, by the way. I just want to make it clear. I'm just as guilty as everybody else. Okay, so.
Oh yeah. Well, you're preaching. It's like do as I do. We're all trying our best. You're preaching with the recognition that we're all trying and none of us are perfect.
Yes. So I'm very careful. Avoid using the stove. Well, that's the problem. Of course, we heat things and then we've got the fridge and we've got all these things in one area, right? And that's really difficult, right? That'll expend a lot of energy, right? Unplug appliances you're not using. Turn on bathroom fans. That's an interesting one.
Turn them on or off?
It says on here.
Yeah, oh, maybe it's like after you take a shower, turn on the fan, and then it gets the humidity through the rest of the house.
That's what they mean, yeah. And then of course the no heat light bulbs are clear and so on. So
I didn't know that. Wait, explain that. So is that a no heat light bulb?
Yeah, well, the incandescent light bulb, this is probably something that happened before you were born, at least when I was there, Georgia. We used a lot of these light bulbs that got quite hot, right? I mean, you probably never
was there, okay.
I'm not sure, maybe you've never seen them.
Okay, so light bulbs, but I don't really know what changed. I mean, I know that there's like these light bulbs that have like the tubes, like the whole thing is kind of like glass tubes and they're more energy efficient. But there's also sometimes the glass is clear, sometimes it's clouded. So there's energy efficient light bulbs, but there's also like low heat light bulbs. Are those the same thing?
Yes, that's exactly right. I mean, that everything that has sort of this cold light now, that's what I call it, cold light, right? Sort of makes you look a little bit like a ghost or so.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about, more energy efficient lights. But what basically a normal light bulb emits 98% of the light, that's thermal energy, you will never see, and only 1 or 2% of that is light, right? That is usable. But that's from Edison's time. Of course, we've been living on that and optimizing that for a long time, and now we're coming to the LED age and many other light sources that are much more efficient, and they're mixing it and so on. That's what it basically says, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and we have a question here from David Howden about how flying foxes manage the heat. And or not flying foxes, bats in general, and flying foxes are one type of bat. When he asked that question, I immediately thought of flying foxes because those species tend to have those types of bats have a lot of problems when it gets too hot. Because I mean, first of all, they're in tropical, like very hot areas. And so, but when they have like heat waves in Australia, for example, dead flying foxes, these dead big bats are kind of like these are the bats that will die in heat waves. So the short answer is they are potentially not very good at managing the heat. So I'll share a picture real quick of what a flying fox is for those who don't know.
Okay.
Sorry, my computer is being a bit delayed here. And I'll just share the entire screen because it's acting weird. Oh. But yeah, have you heard of this, Christian? Like the flying foxes dying?
No, tell me. Yeah, I only vaguely. So I just go ahead, please. So.
Yeah, no, it's kind of like in the well, here, let me try real quick. Can you see the picture?
Yes,
of them now?
We can. Yes.
So
yeah,
this is an article from National Geographic. Flying foxes are dying in mass in Australia's extreme heat. So these bats are pretty big. They're also sometimes called dog-faced bats because their eyes are really big and they have kind of like a cute face like a dog's. But they can sort of manage the heat. So for example, like there's this picture of a bat that's flying in this water in the day. And so normally bats are active at night, of course, but they can be active during the day. And of course, none of this is working. And this one, for example, is choosing to go flying in the water during the day. So that's kind of cool. I mean, and it looks like it's just kind of, it's pretty wet. You see this, like its body is really wet. So maybe it was just getting itself wet.
Yes.
To help cool off. And also it could probably drink water. They drink while they're flying on the wing. I'm sure that they choose like more shaded areas to roost in, for example, is one option. But they can be prone to overheating just like birds can.
So is that why they were dying so where the mortality?
So they were dying because it was a heat wave. And I think especially the babies oftentimes die because they're less able to regulate their heat compared to adults. And part of that is because the babies are smaller, right? So Christian, you know, from a physics standpoint, I'm sure this makes intuitive sense to you. Like the smaller you are, the higher
your surface area, more surface area, and that's why.
Yeah, the relatively more of your surface area is exposed to the environment.
That's right.
And so the more you're sort of at the will of whatever the environmental temperature is.
You're right, absolutely.
And so babies are very sensitive. Baby bats, baby people probably too are sensitive to temperature changes. I actually have a lot of problems with, like, in the winter I get really cold, and in the summer I overheat quite easily. And my mom, who works at the hospital, she was like, "Oh, we call that little girl syndrome." Basically, like small woman just like small animals are sensitive.
But you're not that small, are you? No, I don't think.
You don't know. You've never met me.
I've never met you, but
life.
you look so tall. But anyway, maybe I met you.
Actually, it's so funny. People say that to me. People, like, I'll go on a date with someone at a restaurant, and we'll be like sitting at the bar, and then I'll go on a second date with them at
Here we go.
the park or something, and they'll be like, "You're way shorter than I thought you were." They're like, "You have tall person energy."
Well, now you have to give me the height. Now everybody wants to know.
Guess my height. Yeah, I'm Detour. Let me know how tall you think I am.
Okay, yeah, you put it in the comments. Put it in the comments. How tall is Georgia?
Yeah. I'm going to convert it from feet and inches to meters.
Yeah, whilst you do that, I'm just going to comment on David Halden's comment because it's a very good one.
Oh yeah.
So what he's talking here is about the color, the color temperature of lights, and he's right. For nocturnal animals, the blue is much worse. That is completely correct. And David, I would add to that, it's much worse than that because our light pollution, unfortunately, is increasing not only for our nocturnal animals, also for us astronomers and so on. And it's crazy the amount of light that is emitted at night, and maybe that's a separate topic. And what it actually how it disorients a lot of wildlife is, that's a topic of its own. So I agree with you. 5'2".
And 5'2". Close. I'm 2 inches taller than that. I'm 5'4", which equates to 1.6 meters.
Really? So. I am surprised. You know what my guess was? 6'0" was my guess. Okay, so I was completely.
Oh, so 6 foot. That would be awesome. So yeah. Sean has.
How can you say that? Everything's awesome. Come on.
Yeah,
it's good. 5'6".
We do have a comment here. I think this is another interesting comment to address from Jim McDonnell. It's kind of disappearing down the screen here, but he says they planted the trees along the roads in my area so that it forms a canopy as the trees mature. That's great. I think it's beautiful, just like the dream. But he also adds, not so good for the trucks to get in, but it makes for nice shade. Yeah. So I don't know if you've ever noticed when you're driving along a highway or something and you see there's trees along the highway sometimes. In the middle of a city, it's maybe not so important because you don't have that many big trucks going through. Like there's not very many trucks that have to get to our public library in town. But yeah, you will see that there is like the trees will kind of have this weird shape to them where they're like missing a kind of like corner from underneath them almost. And that's so the trucks can get through. Ideally they prune them, but also maybe once they're pruned initially, the trucks going by regularly just kind of keep suppress the growth of the branches in that area. But I will always remember that. And let me see if I can find, I wonder if I can find a picture of it. So just so people can imagine what I'm thinking of. No, this is like kind of a hard thing to find a picture of just on the fly. But Christian, do you know what I'm talking about kind of?
I think so.
Okay. But I'll always remember that phenomenon, I guess, of having to like cut. Oh, here's a really good picture of it. Okay. I'm going to show you all a picture. You're going to be amazed. This is what Jim is talking about. So look at this tree. Do you see it?
Yeah.
You see how it's missing this big chunk from it? So that is, now it's because now it's my different screen. Yeah, so that I remember when I was a kid, probably like 6 or something, my dad had these like quizzes for me. And this was one of his quizzes that I never got. We were driving along the highway and he was like, Giorgio, you see how these trees are like kind of, as we drive along, these trees are like missing a chunk like this? Like, why do you think that is? And we're driving along and I was thinking about it and I couldn't figure it out. And I had to ask him to tell me the answer. And he was like, it's so the trucks can get by. And I was like, oh.
Isn't that crazy? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always associate that with like the quiz I failed as a child. I couldn't get the answer. But yeah, I think it's an important point. Trees can sometimes cause some some problems, but I think we can deal with them. Yeah.
I think so too. I
Yeah.
mean, it's all about the balance, isn't it? So we need the
David
balance.
doesn't think I'm particularly short.
Oh, there you go.
It's not. I think it's still within average height for a woman, I think. In the United States, at least. Something like this shorter. I'm not like super short, for sure. But I think, yeah.
Well, that makes you a good rock climber, because usually rock climbers are not very tall, are they? So
I think it depends on the climber. There's pros and cons to being tall. It can be bad because you gaining an inch in reach, for example, is usually not worth the added weight of your body that comes from being like an inch bigger. Like, and your fingers are supporting all your weight, but this is neither here nor there. Yeah.
Exactly. That's why I'm tall. I played volleyball. You can imagine what position I played, right?
Yeah. But I think the tiny.
That's funny. Okay.
Yeah, but I do think the tiny girl or tiny animal, in this case, syndrome, is it's not just your height; it's also your like body, your mass ratio. I am quite thin, so you can't.
Yes, you are. You are. Yes.
But if I were fatter, then I would be rounder. And
that's
actually,
rather obvious.
This is a perfect segue to the topic for next week, Christian. If I were fatter, then I would be rounder, and I would have a lower surface area to volume ratio. It means that relatively less of my external.
Also, your insulation is much less, of course.
Yeah, exactly. I would be more insulated. Like fat is insulating, not just
of course it is
creating like an extra layer, but it's making you rounder, and that buffers you. That buffers you against your environment. And so our topic next week is the opposite. It's part 2, too cold.
Oh,
how do animals deal with it being winter, with it being too cold? Yeah.
Yes, that's right. It's going to be all about it being too cold. Yes, that's it.
And we will talk about, I promise all of you, I will find pictures of round, fat animals. And we'll share them with you. They'll be very cute. Like seals. Imagine a fat seal. Imagine a fat squirrel. I'm getting a phone call. Ignore that for right now. But yeah.
Orcas and everything. I mean, goodness me, they have, it's known they have goodness me, they have a lot of fat in order to insulate. Fat. So, there's a balance in everything, right? So.
Yeah. A balance. Yeah. So, but also on the comment of next week's show, where it's going to be at a slightly different time. Is that correct, Christian?
Yeah, that's fine with me. So you're traveling, but Georgia, I would suggest to shift this on to Thursday, because we have also people like in South Africa or Europe and so on. And otherwise, if we do too late, they can't see it, which would maybe be a pity for them anyway. So I think we should just make it a day later. Yeah.
Okay. So that's your update, everyone. Come join us next week, same time, one day later.
One day, Thursday. That's it. It'll be Thursday UTC time. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We have comments, circular shaped birds from Frankman. Yes. Borbs, I believe is the scientific term. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh,
it's a joke term for them, but they're like very round. And then I have a comment, a lot of omega from fish. I don't know exactly what that comment is referring to, but another highlight, I ended like 16 years of vegetarianism last week and became pescatarian.
You did?
I was really low in B12, not omega.
That's the problem, isn't B6, B12 for vegetarians, right? That's it.
Yeah, I've been vegetarian for a long time, and I also wasn't eating that many eggs or dairy or any other animal product, really, just because of...
Really? So extreme? That's... Yeah.
It wasn't on purpose. It was just like, with the tiny house, I don't have a lot of electricity, so I wasn't running a fridge a lot of the time. And then you can't really store like eggs and stuff that often. But that is a topic for another term. So I started eating fish.
And how does it feel? Let us know now. I mean,
I feel so energetic. I mean, I definitely had a tremendous B12 deficiency, I think. I feel I have like so much strength and energy that I didn't before. I'm not saying that being vegetarian is bad, but you have to be careful to have like a balanced diet. But anyways, yes, I think we've...
That's fascinating. Let's discuss that another time, because it's really interesting what you're saying there.
Yeah, that's true. We should have an episode on diet
Mm.
and animals and
Oh,
stuff.
my chocolate diet, sure. No, that's
Chocolate
okay.
diet. I've had 2 servings of chocolate today at least. They weren't both at the same time. They were
That's
spread
good.
out, but Yeah.
Okay, we'll discuss that another time.
Oh, David Howden says he's going to be off birding Thursday.
Okay, well,
yeah.
hoping for golden eagle. That's great. Well, we'll have you on the show once. That's wonderful. Really, it's so interesting. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. And
bye, everyone. Yeah, thanks for joining us.